Awareness may not completely disarm prejudice, but it sure is a good place to start. And today we start a conversation that we hope would lead to meaningful action and a better understanding of the LGBT community, and as a society, we can support. Shanice, Millie, and Marvin were brave enough to share their stories with us for a panel discussion, whose aim is to uproot underlying issues, and it is moderated by Akola Thompson.
My name is Akola Thompson. I am SASAD Women's Arms Coordinator and Communications Focal Point. With us are Salima Hines from the Guyana Responsible Parenthood Associations, who is the Programs Manager. We have Jairo Rodriguez, also from GRPA, who is a Programs Coordinator. Also joining us is Valini Leach from the Society Against Sexual Orientation Discrimination, who serves in the capacity as Human Rights Coordinator. We will be examining 3 videos today, the first of which is Shanice Banfield. Shanice was a young student who would have been bullied due to her sexual orientation in high school. This is Shanice's story.
Hi, I'm Shanice. I'm a photographer, an activist, a poet, but above all, I'm human just like everyone else. And this is my story. When I started photography, it was basically when I was going through a rough part of my life. And I started to notice the finer things in life. I could have looked at the plants and I could have seen the different, the different avenues in which a vine would run from that plant. And it all looked unique, right? And I mean, if you take a moment to look at every little thing, you can notice the beauty in it. When I came out, it was basically around 4th form into 5th, so I was about roughly 15, 16 then. My dad, he reacted in it differently than I would have expected. He was physically abusive. My grandmother, she went into a state of depression at one point, but it was very hard for me to deal with the family around that time because I also had issues with my school. We were taught that the teachers were, there to protect us and help us in any challenges that we faced, but they did not do that. They contributed to my situation I was going through at that point. But coming out, dealing with family, and then I had to go and deal with it at school as well. It was just all around me at that point in time, and it wasn't easy. It was not. I had just discovered who I am, openly said who I was, right? And they, as teachers, should have done better because I knew nothing about, about me at that point. The teachers took away my title as head prefect at that point in time. She suspended me and then tried to expel me, which she shouldn't have done. I mean, I didn't break any of the rules. I was always a good student, straight A's, perfect reputation. Yeah, I was living that type of dream. A couple weeks after I came out and I was threatened to be expelled and all these things, my hair started to fall out. I was stressed and I cut my hair with permission from my parents and stuff. And due to the fact that I cut my hair, they did not like that because they figured I was acting out who I was. And they would constantly pull me out if my ribbon wasn't in my hair, or I was in the class and I wasn't up front because I used to sit in the back and they wanted me up front. I needed to do this, I need to put my ribbon in my hair tight or whatever. My hair was too short for that, so I refused to wear the ribbon and stuff. But they constantly pulled me out for that. If I didn't wear the right color sneakers, they would have pulled me out for that too. So it was very small stuff, and I felt as if they were coming down on me twice as hard because of my sexuality and who I was, and because I openly identified myself. It also affected my performance in school. My grades went from yay high to yay low. I mean, I started doing bad in all my subject areas, and this was literally coming on to examination, CXC, because school now became, you know, that place where it was just very uncomfortable. I couldn't think, I couldn't breathe properly without someone coming down on me. So it pulled my grades down, it affected me and pulled me down as a human being because I felt as if I was dehumanized. It was a lot of pressure on me, you know, I felt depressed. Many days I wanted to commit suicide. I thought about ways in which I should have, you know, and I could have. I only slipped deeper and deeper into it as the day go by with all the negativity I had around me. I had that support system from my friends and a few family members who accepted me. And I came to the realization that, you know, even though things are very rough right now, there ought to be, you know, that light at the end of the tunnel. And I was determined to make it out. I wasn't gonna let anybody define me because of my sexuality, because that is just a fraction of me. I think that the educational system needs to provide a program which teaches the teachers and the students, even if it's just once a month, you know, whether it be in the school or the environment they work at, or, you know, even at a teacher's training college, I think they should implement a system whereby they teach them gender identity, you know, gender expression, all these different things. They should implement these things in school because we're living in a society whereby people are comfortable and they're okay with themselves to come out and tell the world who they are and be proud of themselves. Because it's not about, you know, your personal views and these things anymore. It now becomes about who you are and who the other people are and how you interact with them. How you treat people is a reflection of how you would want someone to treat you.
In one part of the video, Shanice mentioned that she had just discovered her sexuality, who she was, and she would have faced all this backlash from her family and friends and the school administration. Now, what do you folks think with regards to young persons, particularly in schools? What are some of the things that can be done to help them transition better into their coming of age, particularly when it comes to their sexuality?
In Shanice's case, I remember it vividly. I was the person who had the first report. Shanice was bullied not only by her peers, but more so her teachers. I vividly remember the social worker who dealt with her case at that time. It was a Child Link case worker. Under the British High Commission Gender-Based Violence Project. She came one afternoon and she was literally in tears about this young woman at school who was being bullied and harassed not only by her peers but by teachers. You know, it broke my heart to hear teachers who we believe as a society who should be the second protector after parents. And you're telling a child, you need a good beating to beat the gayness out of you, or you need some holy water, and that kind of thing. You know, it was like Shanice at one point was trapped in a box. The pain was too much because there she was, confused, trying to assert herself, then having to deal with this added pressure. Because it was around exam time. This was an honor roll student. And you know what is sad? There are many, many more Shanice Bamfields in schools across Guyana. We tend to forget. Teachers see children with these issues as outcasts, as wasting their time, to try to guide them along. You know, so I strongly believe that as teachers, they should not only focus on the academics, but also work or guide along. And in order for them to be guides, they need to be equipped with the correct tools, and this can only come from education reform.
Well, that's a very important, at least point I would like to make, because clearly the teachers were not educated on this sexual orientation and gender identity on a whole. And imagine that Shanice was head prefect, and you just stripped her of the high merit, and then expel her. I mean, and as a caseworker, can you just expel a kid from school because you don't understand them? Like, how did that roll out? Like, I don't understand how you can do that.
Go ahead.
Well, I think, is really, you have to remember too that teachers they're human beings that have socialized out of a wider society. So it's not just about training, but also holding them accountable, because you can train completely, but who is ensuring that children are protected? And I guess it's a matter of people just bringing back their personal views into an environment that is diverse. Even if you're not comfortable with the diversity, a school environment is a diverse environment.
Yeah.
So how do we ensure that teachers, educators, whoever they might be, are able to respect, recognize diversity? And even if they're challenged or they don't understand it, I can understand that you don't know how to deal with the situation, but why is it your default reaction to discriminate and victimize rather than try to learn and help?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's really important, I think, parents, the ministry, to be able to come together to protect children and have these kind of discussions in those spaces, so things can change for children like Shanice.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to young students, particularly like Shanice, one of the implications it has was that in the LGBT community already have high rates of mental illness and the rates of suicide. So one of the implications was that she actually began to consider suicide as a result, and that's not something that was considered. So I don't think people understand how serious bullying, particularly for gender identity, sexual orientation, can actually be.
Frank, you come from a home that really don't understand you, and then you go to school, and then it was just added pressure, it was just added negativity to her. So it's as you mentioned, it's just too much for, how old was she then? 15?
Yeah.
15, for a 15-year-old child. So people don't see the humanity with LGBT youth and LGBT persons. They don't see that these are children too, to be nurtured,
What also stood out for me is that, I'm thinking at my age, as a straight female, I had no pressure to be this is who I am, And this idea that, LGBT men and women have to, I guess, is this whole process of coming out and explaining who you are, that as a straight person, we've never had to be okay, this is the kind of people I like, and this is what I want to do. And for me, I just thinking of that added pressure on top of school, friends, the regular teenage stuff, to add that on top of the mix, it just seems so stressful. It's unfortunate. She didn't really find a safe space at home or school to help her navigate all of that stuff.
Yes, but then look at the difference. It would be normal if a cisgender student would just decided to cut her hair because it was she was stressed and it was falling. But because they were aware that she had some, she was identifying differently, all of a sudden her short hair or her boy hairstyle became an issue.
Yeah.
Now we'll be examining the case of Millie Milton, a trans woman who speaks a lot about the state of the laws in Guyana and the implication that has on her personal life and also other LGBT persons.
I always knew I was different. I was never like a male. I was always in female attire. I want to wear makeup. I want to have long hair, long nail. The first time I got my mustache, I shaved it out, and it was just me. My name is David Ann Milton. I prefer to be called Millie. I'm a trans woman hailing from Demerara, Iflot, West Coast Demerara. Well, I come from a very liberated family. My mother and my father, they have never questioned my sexuality or my difference from my other brothers and sisters. So I never had to disclose to them anything. They accept me for whoever I am. I come from a family of 11 brothers and sisters, and I'm the youngest, and my older siblings, they really supported me. My sister, them has migrated, and they sent my clothes from overseas, so I used to cross dress in the early, like the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. I started to cross dress, and it was something that I always want to be. But every day, it's a problem for the public to really accept me as a citizen of Guyana. And every time I pass, they always want to question me. Am I a man or a woman? People call me your grandfather or grandmother, and things like that. And it's discriminating. But I always choose my battle. I don't stop to answer or give them justice to what they're saying. But it's something that we really need to change in this country. One night I was walking home from work, and some boys in the village pelted me with almost 24 glass bottles. I went to the police station and reported it, and the police officer told me if it happened the other night, I must come back and report it. I can't wait because I might be dead by the other night if they pelt me with 24 bottles. It really hit me. But I was so lucky the first time I ran, so the bottles didn't hit me. Last year, 2017, September, I was coming back from a Carry Flag meeting, and I joined a bus at the 32 Park. And the park is situated like a touter put you in the bus. So I was put into a bus, and when the driver saw me, because the way I dress, I'm so visible. I will always wear my makeup. I wear like different clothing. I don't conform to male clothing alone. And he come from the back of the bus, and he practically kicked me out. I took him to court, and when I was out of country on travel duty, that case was called. He pleaded guilty, and he paid a fine of 15,000 Guyana dollar. People do not understand that trans people exist, or we have a space in society, and they always want to be there in front of you, trying to block you in the sense of progress. Even if when you look for a job, the stakeholders will not want to hire you because of the way you present yourself. And I think I will not change the way I present myself to suit anybody, because there's only one life I'm living. I will not come back to relive this. And I'm very comfortable with myself, and I'm hoping that people can be comfortable with me because I do exist, and I'm an abiding citizen. My biggest accomplishment is to be myself and to be visible. And I like the way I am. I'm comfortable, but sometimes it's a challenge for me to be this. But I will still be me, dressing like this and be myself. Well, we need to start changing the punitive laws in this country. And that laws by itself is discriminatory. And that is where they're pushing LGBT people on the ground. And when I say underground, we don't even want to disclose to ourselves or our parents because of the punitive laws and the culture of society. And we have to start with that, because we still have the buggery law on the books, we still have the cross-dressing laws on the book, and we have so many other vagrancy laws on the book that need to be wiped off. Those laws were adopted by in the colonial days, but the people who rule us in the colonial days, they have become liberated. They don't have those laws on the book. Those laws were just to keep us confined. And I think as an independent nation, we need to write these laws off. LGBT people are resourceful, we have potential, and we do exist. We are regular citizens, and we want to give back to this country. We want to live normal in this country, like any other citizen in this country. We want to be here.
One of the points she made was the way in which violence is often meted out against trans persons. Now, as persons involved in advocacy, and particularly in LGBT areas, do you feel that trans persons particularly face a lot of discrimination from the law?
Definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah.
And while LGBT persons on a whole face discrimination, trans people, it's more for them because they're not allowed to be their authentic self. Millie is a perfect example. Yes, so most definitely, they would have faced serious, and we would have seen over the years, in the past 10 years, I think we would have lost maybe between 5 to 8 trans persons, due to violence.
She made reference to the cross-dressing law and also the buggery law. Now we know the cross-dressing law is currently before the Caribbean Court of Justice, really awaiting a decision on that one. But how do you think that such a law impacts the day-to-day lives of trans persons?
Well, I just want to point out that this particular case with Millie is a unique one in the sense that it was heard and a decision was made. Because a lot of people, particularly police officers, do not respect when trans persons go into the stations. If the law changes, the cross-dressing law changes to basically, I won't want to say liberate either, but to put a little bit of respect on identifying or at least giving trans persons that freedom to basically express themselves, I think it puts the trans community in a more positive light to say that now the law respects and the law is on their side and they deserve that respect. They can now go into these stations, they can now go into these courts and get their due justice. That's from...
Just like Jairo was saying just before we started, that before trans persons could not have even entered the courtroom or even police stations because of how they were attired. So I basically would support Jairo in saying yes, it's a win, because we are not where we're supposed to be, but we are at least progressing. So, so Millie was able to enter the courtroom with her makeup and so on, which before could not have happened.
But can we talk about Millie's bravery? I mean, walking on the streets, facing that day to day. We talked about Shanice's bullying and how just in high school, and then Millie is just going through this, and a brave woman living it all. Full makeup, clothing, courtroom, bus park, street, community. And that is just inspiration for the community, really.
Do you think we'll reach a point where Millie and others like Millie can walk down the road without stares, jeers, giggles? Because I've seen it where, people are walking down the road and they might say something overtly aggressive, but the little jokes and these little things are like microaggressions. I can't really imagine what it would be like, but do you think we could reach a point where, people could just walk down the road without having to look over their shoulder or worry that you're walking in the wrong space because you might, be met with some form of violence? Or
as people are more and more educated, and once they would have come to that understanding, and there's a minute or no ignorance about LGBT and trans persons, we might see that shift or that change happening. For me, I wish to see that sooner or later, but I think what you just described, our grandchildren might be living
and I would like people to think about that. 80 to 100 years ago, if a black person walked into a restaurant that says whites only, or drank from a certain fountain, or remember, so Akola and I, we were at a function at the Georgetown Club, and we were thinking just us being there a few, I don't even say decades ago, would have been problematic. Just like our trans person now, there's sort of, people are looking, people are making these net comments. It's the same thing that happened with black persons, indigenous persons, and I mean, the majority of us in Ghana being colored people, we couldn't be in certain spaces. Correct. And same with transgender persons cannot be in certain, but as we are educated, as we realize to respect diversity, to basically realize that we are one people at the end of the day, I think things will change.
And now we'll be examining our final video from Junior Livan. Now, Junior was a pastor who would have had to relinquish this role following his coming out story. And this, of course, brings into the conversation the issue of religion and its place in the LGBT community.
Hi, my name is Marvin Junior Livan. I'm 26 years of age. I am a qualified late operator, and I am openly bisexual. This is my story. I had known that I'm bisexual at the age of 9 years old. At the time, yes, I was 9 years old. I always was curious when I see, same-sex couples together, But then, in my high school years, I had a lot of girlfriends. So I was in relationships and stuff until I met my ex-wife, and we got engaged and when I was 18, and then we got married when I was 20, back in 2012. And that relationship ran its course, and after that I came out bisexual after that relationship with me and her in our marriage and stuff like that, after she left. I was the age of 23 when I came out as bisexual. I told my big sister, I came out to her as bisexual, and she didn't shun me. She showed me that love and support up until this very day. My other sister, I didn't get much support from her, but I get it now. She loved me. Even my parents, it was hard. My mom, yes, she cried. Likewise, my dad. My mom reached a stage in life that she accepted me the way I am. But my father, it's a little bit hard up until this moment. Family means a lot to me. It always had been and still is. And that's why I was very persistent in reaching out to them, because at the end of the day, I didn't want to lose them. I didn't want, them to continue to lose love for me. I'm still in a same-sex relationship with my gay lover. We are together, and people heard rumors, after seeing us together and seeing pictures with us. And when people ask me, especially my family, I always deny it. I always doubt. I said, no, we are friends. Until one day I, see everybody posting up. It was a Valentine, and I see everybody posting up pictures with they and their lover. And it hurt me to know that these people are doing it and I can't do it because of discrimination. And that moment I was on the bed that Sunday, and I look out to the window, and a small voice inside of me saying, it have one life to live, and you live it to the fullest. Love who you choose to love. I feel pressured before, in striking that balance in living for me, because despite I want to, please them in my quiet moments inside of me, it was like torn apart. Ever since I was the age of 18, I joined Bible school after, I recognized the call of God on my life, and I get ordained at the age of 20. I was married at the time when I get ordained, and after me and my wife, we split up. I left the church because of my sexuality also. I leave the church, and going into the Anglican communion now, my desire is to become a priest, and my greatest challenge is that if I become a priest, I have a fear inside of me that I will be shunned upon by members of the Anglican communion. Presently now I'm serving in the church as a server at the altar, right? They said, they shouldn't even got you up there, homosexuals have no place there, and and they start to lace me and lace the bishop and the priest, So it drives a kind of, little fear inside of me, if when it's time for me to become a priest, if this would occur, again, repeat itself, not by one person, but by, multitudes of people. I want to become a priest, and I know to myself, I will become a priest, and I will fight for what I believe in. And I will continue to fight and reach out to decision makers in the Anglican communion, like the bishops and archbishops and other priests and clergy at large. And I will continue to raise LGBT awareness in the church and continue to stand up for our rights. LGBT persons tends to be frustrated, and and that frustration leads to depression, and depression leads to suicide. It had times in my life, that I felt suicidal, but I thank God for encouraging friends, and people who wouldn't feel that love and support from the family. My encouragement is to, be around, a group of friends that would love you and support you and be there for you, or a particular group of family that show you that love. Love thy neighbor as thyself. I say that from a Christian perspective, love thy neighbor as thyself. You know, we all are not born equal, but we are born to love. No one is born hating. We are born to love each other. And if we love each other, this world would be a better place.
Now, how do you feel religious persons, do you feel like religious persons have a role in, do you feel LGBT persons have a role in the religious community?
Yes, most definitely. For me, in terms of religion, I can speak more specifically on Christianity. They need to practice what they preach and include everybody. At the end of the day, we are all human beings. We are all entitled to our human rights, and LGBT persons can play a prominent role and part in religion.
And I think you also have to recognize because someone is part of the LGBT community doesn't mean they lack spirituality. Correct. And I mean, if this is a space that they want to enter, I think there shouldn't be any barriers. And in a society like Guyana, where you probably have more churches in certain spaces than you have other kinds of services, I think the church is a really important resource in communities where, you know, sometimes people need counseling, they need guidance. And not necessarily counseling to say, I don't want to be gay anymore, but gay people, just like everybody else, have issues with money, housing, relationships. And I think the church could be such an important resource if they open their arms to help people, to guide people. That's if somebody wants to be connected in that space. And I don't think they should, you know, have any barriers to prevent people from participating.
Mm-hmm. And I know we're only looking at his experience in the church, but something that I always question, and it raises eyebrows to think, so in the Hindu religion, there's nothing basically barring someone from being a homosexual, expressing that. In India, before British colonialization, accepted a third gender. You know, a lot of their reincarnation comes in both male or female, the reincarnations. And I was looking at it once, there was a chutney competition for matrimony, and when you realize the attire the males would wear and the dances they would do, it would look to someone who's like very into their manhood, it would look a bit feminine. All the moves, and then, you know, it's a long gown, sort of, and even Muslim men would wear, you know, what we'd call long dresses, people. So the Hindu religion really doesn't bar it and they accept certain things, but our culture, that is where you get that whole demonizing of LGBT persons. And I never understand why religion has to play that part with supporting this negative view of LGBT persons when they can be more accepting. You know, traditionally, churches are supposed to be this place of comfort, this place of acceptance. It's really not like that, and that's disappointing.
Now, as we close, I think it's important for us to firstly consider the implications of not accepting persons for who they are. Firstly, we're all human beings. We all have the intrinsic right to freedom and be ourselves. And when it comes to identity, whether that be sexuality, sexual orientation, religion, regardless of it, it's just dependent on who you feel you are and how comfortable you are as a person. And so self-acceptance really goes a long way. But of course, when it comes to these sort of things, particularly in the LGBT community, the laws also need to be examined, particularly the cross-dressing law, as we stated, that is before the courts. We also still have the buggery laws, though, and that needs to be challenged. And when we examine the role of bullying in schools, that is something also that needs to have a lot of attention. Do any of you folks have any final thoughts?
My final thoughts would be for the Guyanese society to open up and be accepting, ask questions, educate yourselves. Let's not judge. All right, because you never know, you might have a family member or a close friend who might be a part of the LGBT community. And for the lawmakers, it is time we get rid of the archaic laws, because the persons who wrote the laws, they have already gotten rid of them. So it's time we do it.
And I mean, at the end of the day, love is love. I mean, enable people to just experience the best of love. And families need to play a supporting role when it comes to anyone at all. Enable your kids, enable their growth, nurture them, and just have them respect anyone no matter who they are. And if they come out as LGBT, what is so wrong with having a gay child? Like, you just nurture them and they'll be the best person that you find, they'll grow and love and accept.
I think for me, what really stood out about watching the 3 stories was, you know, people are more than who they have sex with. So you have Shanice, who's a talented photographer, enjoys what she's doing. Junior, you know, he's pursuing being a pastor, which is admirable. And it just reminds, like, we need to just not focus on people's, what people do in bedrooms to say this is how we should treat them. Because again, as a straight person, that doesn't really dictate how I get treated otherwise. And I think we need to look past that, look at people for who they are, what they can bring, how they can bring value to our lives, and how we could add value to their lives.
Firstly, we'd like to thank Shanice, Junior, and Millie for sharing their stories with us. And thank you, Salima, Jairo, and Valini for discussing these topics with us today. And thank you for watching.